Hello, my name is Simon Gibson. I'm the founder of World Speech Day. World Speech Day happened on March 15th, just a few days ago, and in fact, we had thousands of speeches from around the world collated on World Speech Day. So I'm in the happy position of having seen many of these speeches and being able to pick out a few which I think particularly merit rebroadcasting and having a think about. One of the factors for that is how they reflect on the overall themes that have come out of World Speech Day. It's been a unique experience to have speeches from all over the world taking place on one single day because it's been a kind of snapshot as to what the world is thinking on that day. And one of the things that's come out most forcibly to me is the notion of change. I think the key idea, the key word almost, that's been prevalent in many of the speeches was the notion of change. I suspect driven by the events of the last year, but no, but it seems that the idea of change is foremost, uppermost in people's minds right now. The changes that are going on, how we're going to cope, what change means in so many different ways. So the first speech I'm going to play is from Hong Hongzhu, and her speech reflects on cultural change and the need to understand the full implications of cultural change. So I'm going to put over to Hong Kong and have her talk.
I feel honored to be invited to speak on World Speech Day 2021. I'm going to share one of my personal stories with you. My name is Hong Hongxu. I was born in Beijing, the capital city of China. I moved to Germany many years ago to study. Since I was from a very poor family, I hardly had money in my pocket, but I was packed full of ancient Chinese virtues. Already in my childhood, I was taught to be humble, to work hard, and never to stop learning from others. For a very long time, it worked very well for me. At a record pace, I finished my German language exam, completed my master's study, and landed a very good job in a big German company. Later at work, I continued working hard, learning from others, but never felt good enough to speak up. However, I was not worried about it because I knew hard work and humility is the recipe of my success. It paid off. I was promoted and assigned to work in Hong Kong. But one day something happened to me that made me start to doubt my recipe of success. In front of my boss and colleagues, I should present my project. I was so scared. Just a few sentences later, I simply lost my words. But my colleague suddenly stood up and took the speech. I felt embarrassed and deeply hurt. At that moment, I finally realized having lived and worked in a foreign country without adapting myself to the local culture just held me back. Being humble doesn't mean you have to be silent. In the Western culture, it is essential to speak up and to make sure that your voice is heard by others. From that moment, I made the decision to change myself. And from that moment, I also find my mission being a culture advocate to let other people raise their intercultural awareness. Also, from this very purpose, I made the most difficult decision in my life 1.5 years ago. After almost 24 years, I decided to leave the big corporation in order to establish my own company with the name Peking Bridge. Today, I'm not afraid of speaking up anymore, and I very much enjoy helping other people and other organizations to overcome their intercultural obstacles in order to achieve their common success. Thank you very much for your attention. Hello everyone. I feel
Okay, a very interesting short speech from Hong Hong. I think interesting because it reflects a general misapprehension that if you change cultures, then somehow you're going to bring your kind of personal things with it. But actually, changing cultures and indeed even changing geographies requires further personal change than perhaps one might at first perceive. And the demands of new cultures put new demands, personal demands on you. And so to succeed in different cultures, we may have to adapt rather more. Now, I think that's important as we go forward from the pandemic and understand globalization further. It means that new demands are going to be put on us to try and adapt and change in this changing environment. So I enjoyed that speech on change, and the next speech on change is from Dr. Solveig Evenstad in Norway. Dr. Solveig Evenstad is an academic, and she's talking about acceleration and burnout, the increased rate of change has profound impact on personal careers and the whole notion of burnout. So I'm just going to add
Hello,
stream.
my name is Solveig Evenstad. I'm a scholar and I work at the University College of Norwegian Correctional Services, KRUS. I would like to talk about the acceleration and ephemeralization in the new world of work and how this has been creating stress and burnout throughout many sectors. The criminal justice system is no exception, and correctional officers are stressed out and burning out around the world. Technological transformation has increased productivity of both organizations and individuals and resulted in economic growth and safer workplaces. However, acceleration of the pace of work and life has important psychosocial effects on society, organizations, and workers. Ephemeralization, according to Fuller, is the ability of doing more and more with less through technological advancement, that is, an accelerating increase in the efficiency of achieving the same or more outputs with less input. Ephemeralization involves acceleration and work intensification, which has profound consequences. Hartmut Rosa, the German philosopher, makes an analogy to the hamster wheel, which he considers as the icon of late modernity. He warns that acceleration has profound negative effects for human beings, such as burnout. So let's talk about stress and burnout in the correctional system. According to a study of Ayala Pines and Giora Keenan in Israel, published in Criminal Justice and Behavior Journal in 2007, the results show that prison employees experience high levels of stress and burnout in their work. In addition, significant differences in stress reactions are found among different areas and different employees in rank and seniority. The most stressful factors were working extra shifts without compensation, low salary, and heavy workload. heavy workload is the key aspect here. So some studies have shown that high workload is a substantial stress factor for correctional officers. For example, in a study conducted in Holland, 65% to 75% of all correctional officers reported feeling stress from being overworked. Another study examining correctional officers in the United States indicated that burnout levels rose along with the workload levels. Burnout is a depletion of an individual's physical and mental resources, according to Freudenberger, who is the father of burnout concept, leading to personal and professional difficulties. Burnout is a threefold process of depersonalization, reduced personal accomplishment, and emotional exhaustion experienced by individuals in service-oriented positions, according to the prominent researcher of burnout called Maslach. So how about the situation in Norway? The correctional services. Is the ephemeralization impacting us? Why is there a steady increase of workload in the correctional system? In Norway, the country with the best prison system in the world, the workload has been increasing steadily during the last years. The labor unions have been asking how long can the prison service handle budget cuts and understaffing. Crime persists and prisons are filled. Prison care does not get less to do, but it gets less money to solve their critical social mission. Thus, there are greater pressure on fewer and fewer employees. Ephemeralization is omnipresent in the Norwegian criminal justice system. We have to accept that. According to research, the safety of employees and inmates is said to have been weakened at the same time as the prisons are filled with more and more, with tougher and tougher criminals with longer sentences. And there are more violence between prisoners and more violence from prisoners to employees. How can this happen with a penitentiary that has garnered international attention and recognition? The labor unions are pointing at the government and say that the answer is embarrassingly simple: persistent budget cuts during the last 10 years. But what to do? This is an international trend. So, yes, the question is what to do. The Norwegian penal system is based on humanistic principles and on individual arrangements for the prisoners. We must acknowledge that security and rehabilitation cost. We need to acknowledge the great challenges the ephemeralization trend is representing for the penal system, for the inmates, the employees, and the society. We must acknowledge the efforts made by the employees for our safety, as they say, in secret, in silence. That's exactly the important point here. These brave officers are doing an incredibly important job to protect us citizens, hidden away from the public eye. Our correctional officers in Norway, with their humanistic attitudes and patient, calm, civil behaviors toward the inmates, deserve our gratitude. It is hard to change the budgets, but at least we can acknowledge the great job they are doing and give them our emotional support. Thank you. So, thank you for listening. Hello.
And again, a really interesting take on another aspect of change, the whole notion of the hamster wheel, and the faster we go, the more burnout there will necessarily be, and the way we need, and therefore, to start to think about careers and workplace and working practices differently. So that's another theme that's come out of World Speech Day, the change to working practice. The third big aspect of change that I think we've found in our speeches is the impact of technological change, in particular the prospect of AI and all that it means for the workplace and also for society at large. So I'm now going to add a further speech, this time from Joshua Elul from Malta, who's going to be talking about the impact of technological change, and fascinating it is too.
Talk about decentralization and humanity. One definition of humanity is human beings collectively. I'll come back to this. Decentralization is the process of taking away centralized powers. For example, rather than having a government take decisions about whether to invest in more street lamps or garbage bins in a community, such powers could be decentralized, allowing the community itself to take such a decision. Such community powers could be vested in a local representative or committee, whom let's assume were voted in by the community members. In this example, powers to choose representatives are completely decentralized down to all community members. However, the power to make the decision in regards to funding, street lamps, or bins is centralized to the representatives. This is an example of a representative democracy, where community members can vote for their preferred representatives. Direct democracy, also referred to as pure democracy, on the other hand, allows for community members to directly make decisions on policies themselves. Whilst historically there have been a number of direct democracies, many argue that it is not feasible due to having to organize frequent referendums. Since the internet has become widely available, many have proposed e-democracies, the use of the internet and technology to support, amongst other things, shifting power down to the individuals rather than having centralized powers. Many advocated that this could enable for direct democracies. However, such solutions still pose issues of trust. The issue is that people would still need to trust the internet systems, that they were working correctly, and that they did not allow for any tampering. In the late 2000s, Bitcoin was proposed, a means to allow for a digital currency that allows for transactions directly between individuals, which do not require any intermediaries. Prior to this, the only way such peer-to-peer monetary exchanges could take place was using physical money. As all other digital transactions required a bank or other intermediaries in place. This was truly revolutionary. Indeed, like all other forms of currency, Bitcoin was used for illicit activities, just like cash, just like bank transactions, and even banks have been specifically set up for illicit activities. But what Bitcoin provided was not just a way to facilitate peer-to-peer digital currency transactions. It made use of different techniques to create a way to ensure that no one could copy money and use money that they did not have access to. We call this mechanism blockchain, a system that is controlled by no single central authority, but by everyone collectively. This is decentralization. It was later realized that blockchain could be used for so much more than just a peer-to-peer digital currency system. It could be used to create self-sovereign ownership of land, enabling for person-to-person transfers of land without requiring a land registry authority, because the blockchain system becomes the registry itself, and no one can steal a property away from you by replacing a piece of paper in a registry. Blockchain systems could be used for all types of processes to ensure that they are tamper-proof and transparent. For example, procurement processes could make use of such systems to minimize corruption in tendering processes. This is how we can enable truly decentralized processes. Indeed, the technology is still in its infancy, but it is making strides. And the change that the technology can bring is revolutionary, not just on the currency or technology sides, but on a social level. Using such decentralized systems, e-democracies could be achieved, enabling a direct democracy. Sure, many questions exist. Should all members of a community have a say in regards to policy decisions that requires high levels of expertise? Maybe not. Should all policy decisions be made solely by representatives voted in? And should they collectively have unrivaled powers? Probably not. Unlike the early days of the internet, we now have the technology to enable direct democracies. Given rampant corruption around the world, high numbers of people feeling alienated and discontent with controlling powers, maybe it is time to start working towards humanity. Remember the definition? Human beings collectively, making humanity decisions for humanity. Decisions made by human beings collectively for humanity. It is time to start using decentralization for humanity. Thank you.
Okay, well, I found that absolutely fascinating, the notion of decentralization and how new technologies can enable humanity to progress and evolve and cope with new stresses, many new stresses of environmental disasters and so on. So I think three very different takes on change: cultural and personal change, career and employment change, and wider societal changes that are enabled by new technologies. So three fascinating cuts on or angles on change. I'm going to be making further broadcasts such as this, highlighting and featuring speeches that have been made over World Speech Day, and picking up this idea of change and what we need to be doing or thinking about as we go forward. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular session of featured speeches from World Speech Day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much indeed.